wonderful YouTube subscribers. Cool, lovely to see you all. I hope you're all doing well. I come to you today from the depths of my front room to talk to you about episode 9, year 12s, 13s, or slash 11s who are coming to year 12 next year. So yeah, I just wanted to talk to you kind of about part two of our discussion surrounding the final vision of the machine. Forgive me for looking down. I've got some notes here that I'm going to quickly share with you. So pen and paper ready to kind of take our final pieces of knowledge about episode 9, which is crazy to think about. This is like the penultimate lecture really on the machinal, but I think I will go back and do some similar stuff from episodes 1 to 7, just as some revision techniques, etc. So just a few things. The idea of this last episode called The Machine, and the stage directions talking about the sound of the aeroplane, and that has two kind of aspects. The one is it's a reflection of the rise of industry, industrialization around the 1920s, but also on top of that, it's regarding her kind of dreams, that dreamlike consciousness, her detachment from reality, her inability to escape or wanting to escape. So that's a few things about that first direction. And I think this scene especially is all about the design aspect. How are you going to present this for your audience in the final moments of her play? Okay. I've just written here as well, like, the woman's completed like all of the stages in her life from episodes 1 to 9. The only aspect that where she is kind of free from this mechanicalized world is episode 6, where she has the illicit love affair with Roe. And this kind of episode 9 brings us directly back to the reality. So bringing her directly back to the reality of her predicament and situation, and reminding her that any freedom that she felt that she had is completely stripped away from her. She's tried, she's been sentenced for the murder of her husband, tried to death. And the machine state now has her back in her grips. And this is like the final act in the tragedy of this play, or her tragedy. I think as a performer, as an actress, there's a few kind of considerations. They're slightly odds here. The actor playing the young woman needs to show the emotion of the situation and how she's feeling. And the other actors surrounding her need to present the machine-like world, so the chorus still reflecting the quality of the play, and that battle between the young woman and the machine still needs to be present. So for me, I would have the young woman plus my chorus, and my chorus are there to remind her that even in this sense of tragedy and death, the machine still has grips upon her. So that's a simple way upon it. The final battle, obviously one of which she will completely lose. In terms of set then, the set could, and I'm using the words today, you could do them differently, but it could be quite simplistic. You might not have those, whatever you're having in terms of constructivist set and ladders and layers and platforms and corrugated steel and grids and all those things we've been talking about. Those can kind of be stripped away, and we might have a sense of simplicity here to reflect a state of loneliness. Because remembering that all of our aspects are a reminder of the internal reflection of the protagonist. So we could just have a gobo in our lighting to reflect the prison bars, and the only piece of furniture could be the chair in which she sits center stage. So that, again, that could really amplify her sense of loneliness, especially if it's backlit at this moment. The lighting could be like quite low and seeped in shadows, again, to create that nightmarish claustrophobic element of an expressionist play. Again, struggling to understand, go back and look at some of the images or film footage of Dr. Caligari, etc. Some of the kind of practitioners we've been studying to kind of give you some additional ideas. As heard in most episodes, sound effects are also central to this final moment. I'm just reading, so just bear with me. But I think that it needs to be quite thunderous. I've put here the loud noise of the machine monotonously thumping all the way through. So again, just that constant reminder. Sound should never stop. You might have it like kind of limited in episode 6, but especially at this point, it's the climatic moment of the play. So sound needs to be quite thumping, quite mechanical, quite regimented, monotonous, but loud, overbearing to support that isolation. If you're going to have a minimal set with really stark contrasting lighting, which is kind of seeped in shadows, claustrophobic, nightmarish environment, then you've got this really good moment here to kind of use sound to support that. I put here, this sound could reduce as the scene begins. The sound present in the scene is conveying the technological society that she lives in. And we have that in reference to the beginning of this quick video with the aeroplane. The whirling plane symbolizes that this machine is becoming more and more advanced. And with that, or thus within that, it's stripping away that sense of individuality. So that comes back to the context that Treadwell was outlining, the idea that as the machine increases and rises, the individuals are the ones to suffer. It eradicates, suspends, it blockades, it dampens any form of emotion. It doesn't even consider it. So the whirling of the aeroplane, again, needs to be mixed with those additional sounds at that moment. I really like the idea of the priest in this scene as well, and the prayer, and just having him or her said in that monotonous rhythmic sound that matches that of the machine. So, her last words in this moment, or her last her last conversation with the priest, you would think would be one about care and redemption, and kind of her acceptance and her understanding of her at this minute. But it should just be mechanical. He should be, or she should be, a mechanicalized caricature, again, to just draw her back to that reality, that inability to escape. So the idea of like emotions from the other external characters should be completely void and not present at this point. So that's really, really important. So the priest's prayer in a monotonous manner, reflective of the machine. I've put sound effects from the prison environment. Within the machine noise, rattling of keys echoed, footsteps of people approaching. And again, I think even the priest's prayer should be almost an offering to the audience, not to her. He's not really there for her. It's just what the machine does at this moment. So it's really similar, really good example where that connects is with where the husband, where Jones brings her flowers, and the fact that he's just doing that to remind us that's what the machine does. Okay, so we talked about even when he was kind of having his jokes and he was directly placing them at the audience to showcase that detachment. Here's a great moment. And again, we know for B1 and B2, we've got to bring in contrasting moments. So that's a really, really good example. The song which is sung, okay, it kind of needs to, I put here, it doesn't have to be, but it could completely contrast the monotonous noises of this machine-like environment. The song should be emotional rather than robotic, and is the only thing the young woman wants to hear. And again, I think that connection between the African-American kind of struggle which Treadwell was referencing, like she is with the ideas of homosexuality, all of those things where these people are not judged with a sense of equality. I think she's making that really clear connection at this point. The song, and what I put here, the song is coming from another oppressed society, and therefore is more emotional than the prayer, which comes from the machine. And we should understand why the young woman says, "No, let him sing," as the jailer asks him to stop singing right near the end of the episode, because she's shown a connection with with the singer's emotional struggle. So that's Treadwell making a really wonderful connection between the context of the play at the time the play was written. Again, she's a phenomenal playwright, and I just think the context is so clear at this point. But understanding why she wants to listen to it is important. I've put here, so to convey this kind of robotic machine-like society, the performers using expressions. They could, when not speaking, face the audience with a sense of vacant stares. They are part of the machine. That's the chorus. However, the young woman should, more than any time of the play, show real emotion in the scene. And perhaps now I've put here an understanding of her desperate position. So them being autonomous, like the automated caricatures, the repetitive nature of them, persona, and her reflecting a sense of realness and real emotion, conveying that she understands her predicament, is really important. And when the barbers tried to shave her hair, I would have her react violently. and maybe even have the chorus or the other characters physically restrain her. This needs to be violent and cruel to show that society will always win. And as a woman in this play, she has no power and realizes, and she puts in quotations, "Nothing is mine." And I think the idea of stripping her hair as well is a real clear connection of them stripping her of her individuality, ensuring that she conforms to the reflections of the machine, but also the idea of not just so much feminine individuality, but femininity as well. And it's like the last thing that they take away from her. When the two guards march onto the stage, they should also form part of the machine and should march in unison, almost like a military regiment, I put down, as if automated, and grab her arms and hold her still to quell her struggles, because they say it's time. Not so much violently, because they are just automated, they are part of the machine. But again, it gives you an idea about this scene and how it will unfold. The episode needs to portray her born into this male-dominated world and how she's been beaten down by the confinements of the machine. The only escape was to murder her husband, but the machine eventually catches up with her and looks for retribution for her going against the system. And just a little brilliant endpoint here from Treadwell. The play's a devastating feminist critique of life in Treadwell's time. Like, that's a beautiful quotation. And it's obvious a display of real anger at the injustices that women faced during the period of the 20s and throughout. It is therefore important that we recognize the impotence and weakness, not importance, the impotence and weakness of the young woman in this episode to portray that. And like any attempt to fight against the machine at this moment are completely futile. Okay? So I'll put this up on class charts on YouTube, on Twitter, to give you some help with the final episode disseminating notes. There are a lot. And I'll just put up a couple of tasks as well of things that you're going to need to do with this knowledge, this final knowledge in episode 9. Ciao.